In this video, we'll be taking a look at 3 NBA games happening on February 25th, 2026, and providing you with free team picks and total picks for each one of those games, so 6 picks in total. Welcome back to Cash Out Sports. Let's dive right into it. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell icon to get notified as soon as these videos get released, so that you have more time to plan out your bets as we provide these videos on a daily basis. I can guarantee that you'll have all the important information that you'll need on these 3 NBA games after fully watching this video. One more thing before we start: if you would like to gain access to our best exclusive sports picks to take your journey to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below, where we offer our best single picks, parlay picks, and much more. Now let's get started. Sacramento Kings versus Houston Rockets. Houston heading into this matchup feels like the group that knows exactly who it is on its own floor, while Sacramento on the road still feels a bit like that talented band that sometimes shows up late to sound check and then wonders why the first song is off rhythm. Houston leans on structure, layers of creation, and a style that can survive a few empty trips, which matters when the game inevitably gets messy and a little chippy. Sacramento can absolutely catch fire, and when they do, it looks great on highlights and social clips, but the problem is how often those outbursts actually stretch across 4 full quarters in a hostile building. On nights when the jumper is not falling early, their energy tends to drift, the defensive focus loosens a touch, and suddenly the game starts being played at the tempo that suits the home team rather than the one they wanted when they got off the bus. Houston, by contrast, has the kind of approach that works like a slow squeeze, not always flashy on a possession-by-possession basis, but built to wear on you with physicality, repeated pressure, and multiple ball handlers who can keep the offense from stalling out when the first action dies. It is a little like playing chess against someone who is fine trading pieces all night, while you are trying to win with one big risky combo that either lands or blows up your position. If this matchup tilts toward a grind in the half court, with bodies bumping, whistles breaking flow, and coaches hunting matchups, that naturally favors the team that is comfortable winning ugly and does not need a perfect shooting night to stay ahead of the number. Even if the pace suddenly spikes and things get wild for a stretch, Houston still has enough athletes and on-ball juice to live in that chaos without completely losing its shape, which keeps the margin from swinging too hard the other way. Run this game out in your head a few different ways. Picture the different game scripts, and the version that comes up most often has Houston using its balance, its home court comfort, and its steadier floor to take control of how this game is played in, more often than not, to stay ahead of the spread once the fourth quarter scoreboard locks in. As our first pick for this matchup, the Houston Rockets to cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. Houston at home is usually more than happy to slow possessions just enough, walk the ball up a bit more often, and make each trip feel like a small exam where you have to execute for most of the shot clock, and that sort of rhythm quietly trims scoring opportunities without anyone really noticing in the moment. Sacramento is at its best when it is running off misses and turnovers, pulling up early, and putting pressure on the rim before the defense can get its feet set. But if Houston forces them deeper into sets, makes them reverse the ball, and bumps cutters off their lines, then you get more long, slightly awkward possessions that eat time and do not always end in clean looks. Those are the trips that do not feel terrible to the eye, but they drag the clock and add up over 4 quarters. There will still be many surges, because both sides have enough talent to stack 8 or 10 points in a hurry, yet those bursts are often followed by pockets where the whistle interrupts flow. Coaches burn timeouts to settle things, and both teams spend 2 or 3 minutes trading empty trips and short-lived advantages. On a betting screen, the total can look like it is always one heater away from racing out, but inside the game, the rhythm keeps snapping back to something a little more controlled, a little more half-court, and a little more friendly to the under. Factoring in late-game situations, where the leading side is more likely to walk the ball up, milk clock, and choose safer actions, and the trailing side presses yet does not always score efficiently, the script tilts toward a finish where the scoreboard feels active but still lands shy of the kind of number people imagine when they hear these 2 offenses mentioned in the same sentence. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Cleveland Cavaliers versus Milwaukee Bucks. This matchup really feels like one of those nights where the number is quietly siding with Milwaukee, even if the headlines are screaming Cleveland. You have Cleveland cruising in near the top of the conference, sitting on that shiny 37-22 type of season, carrying the reputation of a high-powered offense with a defense that usually does enough, and they already own the season series so far. On paper, that kind of profile usually earns a comfy cushion from the books, and sure enough, they are treated like the polished contender while Milwaukee wears the inconsistent tag with that 25-31 record that looks messy at first glance. But here is the thing, the spot itself tilts a lot of little details toward the Bucks in a way that a simple standings graphic on ESPN does not really capture. Cleveland is dragging itself into this one on the second night of a back-to-back after an emotional home win over the Knicks, where that third quarter turned into a slow-motion car crash for New York and a grinded-out, defensive flex for the Cavs. You pour that much focus and energy into blowing open a game, then you climb on a plane, change cities, and ask those same legs to win by margin again less than 24 hours later. That is not just numbers, that is body clocks, travel, recovery routines, and a coaching staff that probably slept with more coffee than actual sleep. Milwaukee is also on a back-to-back, sure, but there is a huge difference between packing bags and walking back into the same locker room where you just pulled off a comeback win. Last night they let the home crowd ride that fourth quarter wave in a tempo game against Miami, storming back behind Kevin Porter Jr., Ryan Rollins, Bobby Portis, and even Kyle Kuzma jumping into the scoring party. That kind of game sticks in a building. You can almost still hear the last few roars when shoot-around starts the next afternoon. For a team that spent parts of the season wobbling, stacking a win like that on top of a quietly strong recent stretch can make a group feel like it finally has its feet under it again. Stylistically, this version of the Bucks is not trying to reenact some old juggernaut highlight reel. They lean into those smaller three-guard looks, Porter and Rollins handling, shooters spacing from the corners, Portis doing his usual chaos work, and Kuzma as the wild card who can flip a quarter with a couple of heat-check jumpers. They play slower than the reputation their name carries, they space the floor, they hunt mismatches, and they are perfectly happy to bleed the shot clock before firing off a clean look from outside instead of racing up and down. Against a Cavs group that just spent last night squeezing the life out of New York in the half court, that is a very annoying style to guard on tired legs. Injuries and availability add another layer. Max stresses out with the foot issue, so Cleveland loses one of the better off-ball movers and floor spacers in their rotation, which makes their offense a tiny bit more predictable in road environments. Giannis Antetokounmpo is still listed as a game-time decision with that calf, and Taurean Prince remains out, so Milwaukee's forward rotation is not exactly full strength either. But honestly, the way this team has been playing, the handicap does not depend on a vintage, unlimited minute Giannis performance. They have gone 7 wins in their last 10. They keep finding ways to finish games, and that late defensive stand against Miami where they strung together stop after stop is the kind of sequence that can become part of a team's identity, especially at home. Put all that together with a fired-up home crowd, both teams on short rest but only one traveling, and a number that clearly bakes in Cleveland's season-long resume more than this exact scheduling spot, and you get a classic situation where the supposed better team might have to grind through a much closer game than the line suggests. As our first pick for this matchup, the Milwaukee Bucks to cover the spread as underdogs is our full-game side pick. Cleveland is perfectly capable of running, yet their comfort zone is a controlled half-court game where Donovan Mitchell, James Harden, and the bigs dictate tempo possession by possession. They are one of the league's higher-scoring teams, but a lot of that comes from repetition and execution, not pure chaos, like a band that plays loud because it is tight, not because it is sprinting. Milwaukee, for all the offensive fireworks they have shown recently, is living in an even slower rhythm. Their pace numbers sit on the lower side, and you see it in how many possessions they are willing to burn just probing for an advantage. They like to spread you out, run a ball screen, kick, respace, and if the shot is not there, they are not afraid to reset. On fresh legs that can still lead to high-scoring nights, especially when the threes drop, but when you stack a back-to-back on top of that, it often morphs into long, methodical possessions on both ends. Now layer on the defensive tendencies. Cleveland has a front court with Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley that is built for exactly this kind of game, a contest that becomes a test of who can win the half-court more often. They protect the paint, they contest, they clog driving lanes, and they are especially tough when they are not constantly backpedaling in transition. On the other side, Milwaukee's defense has not been perfect over the season, but you can see hints of a group that knows it has to lock in late if it wants to turn recent momentum into something real. Holding Miami without a field goal for a long stretch in that deciding fourth-quarter run is not an accident, and it usually signals a team buying into the idea that ugly stops late are just as exciting as big step-back threes. The injury sheet nudges things toward fewer points as well. Max Strus being out removes one of Cleveland's better movement shooters and a guy who naturally speeds up possessions just by running defenders through screens. Without him, more possessions fall into the hands of creators who are comfortable grinding down the clock, which is great for winning grown-up games but not as friendly for inflated totals. Giannis remaining a game-time call with the calf issue creates uncertainty in a way that, weirdly, also leans toward fewer points. If he sits, Milwaukee loses a ton of rim pressure and free throws. If he plays but the minutes or intensity are monitored, you are likely looking at a more measured approach, fewer all-out transition pushes, and more half-court sets built around pick and roll and spacing instead of constant downhill bursts. That part is speculative, and it has to be treated that way, but the underlying reality is not. Both teams are coming off emotional wins. Both have reasons to conserve a bit of energy over 48 minutes, and the number is asking them to sustain a high-speed, high-efficiency shootout for the full game. That is asking a lot when you factor in travel for Cleveland, fatigue on both sides, and the natural tendency on a back-to-back for coaches to lean into longer, more controlled possessions and deeper rotations. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Boston Celtics versus Denver Nuggets. Denver is getting the usual respect at home, high altitude, loud building, and a team that has been sitting in the mid-30s and wins against a bit more than 20 losses with an offense that still runs through Nikola Jokic like he is a point guard in a center's body. Boston walks in with almost the same kind of record, one win better, but it feels like they have taken the scenic route to get there, grinding instead of gliding, and that matters in a place where tired legs usually show up by the second television timeout. They just walked into Phoenix and dragged the Suns into a 97-81 rock fight, grabbed 22 offensive rebounds, and blew the game open with an 11-point quarter allowed, all without Jason Tatum, who is still out rehabbing that Achilles, and Jaylen Brown, who is nursing a bruised right knee and living in that annoying day-to-day label right now. That kind of win does not happen by accident. It speaks to a team that is perfectly happy to play slow, keep the possessions low, and trust that their structure plus effort can carry them when the big names are in street clothes. The funny thing is that this slower version of Boston might be even more annoying to deal with for a team like Denver. They are playing at the slowest pace in the league, still living near the top in net rating, and they do it with a blend that is almost old school, a top-tier offense paired with a defense that hovers in that top 10 range, the basketball nerd's sweet spot where efficiency meets stubbornness. They do not need a shooting heater to stay in games, they just keep generating extra chances, getting to their spots, and forcing you to bang your head against a half-court wall over and over. The names that keep popping now are not only the stars, but the guys who thrive in that environment. Derek White running the show, Neemias Queta eating space and boards, Sam Hauser and Baylor Sasharman stretching the floor, Peyton Pritchard pushing the tempo when it actually makes sense, and Nikola Vucevic giving them a veteran big who understands when to punish a mismatch and when to just keep the ball moving. That depth is a big deal in Denver, where most teams shorten their rotation because they are tired, while Boston can keep rolling out functional lineups that all play the same slow, physical, slightly annoying style. Denver on the other side feels like the exact opposite flavor. They are the slick offensive juggernaut with the top-ranked attack in the league and the most accurate three-point shooting. The team you see in highlight packages when Jokic whips a pass through 3 defenders and someone buries a corner 3 like it is a free throw. But that shine comes with a crack. Their defense sits near the bottom third of the league, and you see it when games turn into scoring races that they do not put away because they simply cannot string together enough clean stops. The recent loss to Golden State, where they gave up a big number, fits the pattern. Exciting basketball for neutral fans, stressful basketball if you are laying points and watching leads leak away possession by possession. On top of that, Denver is still juggling bodies. Aaron Gordon is dealing with a hamstring issue. Tamar Bates has his own injury. Peyton Watson has been out as well. And even when some of these guys are technically available, they are not really in mid-season rhythm. That trims some of their athletic punch on the wing and in transition, and it forces even more weight onto Jokic and Jamal Murray to solve problems in the half court instead of letting their depth wear people down. There is also the memory of the first meeting between these two, that 114-110 result in Boston where Denver escaped but did not exactly dominate, and Jaylen Brown dropped a huge scoring night while the Celtics led at different points and generally proved they could live in the same weight class. So now you get a Boston team that is deeper than it looks on paper, used to uglier games, and already comfortable on this road trip after wins at Golden State, the Lakers, and Phoenix, lining up against a Denver group that is brilliant on offense but more fragile on the other side of the ball. When you put all of that together, the altitude, the styles, the depth, the recent form, and even that little revenge edge lingering from the first matchup, the side that keeps hanging around and turning this into a four-quarter fistfight looks very live to stay inside the number again. As our first pick for this matchup, the Boston Celtics to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. The total on this game is sitting in that loud, flashy range that tells you the market expects fireworks, the kind of number you see when a top offense gets a home game and the algorithm just shrugs and says, sure, let's assume a track meet. At first glance, that makes sense. Denver has that top-ranked offense. They shoot the three at the best clip in the league, and Jokic's box scores read like a video game with points, rebounds, and assists all living in the high-rent district. But the way these points actually come together matters. Denver is not a run-and-gun team in the classic sense. Their pace sits in a fairly normal half-court range. They score by walking you into mismatches, running smart actions, and punishing every mistake, not by turning every miss into a sprint relay. Those massive scoring nights against teams like Memphis, the Clippers, Portland, and Golden State have something in common. They came against opponents that either push the tempo or simply do not have the defensive backbone or rebounding to slow things down when the game starts to tilt into chaos. Boston is built almost as the antidote to that style. They just walked into Phoenix, shot poorly from the field and from three, and still controlled the night because they turned every possession into a wrestling match around the rim, pulling down 22 offensive boards and holding the Suns to that tiny third-quarter output. That is the kind of blueprint that squeezes extra seconds out of the clock on both ends. Missed shots turn into scrums, scrums turn into second-chance layups or fouls, and suddenly you realize the game has felt physical for 2 hours, but the score is lagging behind what you expected. With Jason Tatum still out and Jaylen Brown dealing with a knee that already cost him that Suns game, Boston has leaned even harder into that identity. More inside-out possessions, more patience, more willingness to win games where the box score looks ugly but the film looks beautiful if you like rotations, rebounding, and staying locked in for all 24 seconds of the shot clock. It is the kind of offense that can still be very efficient, but it does not naturally push totals into silly territory, especially on the second night of a back-to-back at altitude, where the first thing tired legs usually give up is repeated full-speed sprints in transition. Denver's injuries feed into the same story from the opposite side. Without Aaron Gordon fully healthy, without Peyton Watson's activity, without Tamar Bates in the mix, they lose some of the easy run-out and slashing energy that turns stops into instant points, and they end up leaning even more on Jokic and Murray to operate in controlled half-court sets. That style is still terrifying for any defense, but it is also deliberate, methodical, and very comfortable living in games where every possession feels important instead of turning into a pickup-style exchange of quick threes. So when you mash these two profiles together, a Boston team that prefers the slowest tempo in the league and just proved it can drag games into the mud, and a Denver attack that is elite but happier in a carefully scripted half-court environment, that big total starts to look more like an optimistic ceiling than the average outcome. The natural script points toward a game that feels tense, physical, and a little bit playoff-flavored, with both sides trading long, thoughtful possessions instead of trading quick haymakers on the scoreboard. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. That's all for now, so if you have any other games you would like reviewed, then leave a comment down below with the game you would like analyzed, subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, and we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. We would also love to hear your opinion on the picks presented to you in this video, whether you agree or disagree with them, so leave a comment down below and do let us know.